Well, good evening, everyone. I'm hoping everybody's having a good night. You guys hear me okay? See my screen all right?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You're
Yep.
sir.
good.
All right, excellent. Hey, so next week is pretty much dedicated to team presentations. So you guys are just going to show you and talk about your supply chain map, your geographic diagram, your thread diagram. Any questions at all about that for next week? Okay, I'm going to assume that's good then. So we'll start the week 5 with the team presentations. If we have time afterwards, then we'll go through the lesson 5 plan. Uh, lesson 5 slides are on the portal as well as the lecture notes, so that should help you if you need it. All right, and then uh, any other questions on any of the assignments up to this point? Or any questions in regards to supply chain?
Not at this time.
Okay, so I'll send you guys an email out, but I'm going to remind you guys to take your end of course evaluation. Try and get that done on time. Uh, I know you guys are getting ready to graduate, so congratulations on that. Um, there is no week 5 assignment, and there's no week 5 discussion questions. You guys will start your Master Business Project 3 the following next Thursday, right after our last class on Wednesday. Um, so make sure you get all your assignments completed, so we get your grades in there as quickly as we can. All right. So if no questions, we'll just jump right into the tonight's lecture. So lesson 4 is really all about supply chain integration. It's collaboration amongst those 5 pillars: the plan, the source, make, deliver, and return. And the purpose of integrating a supply chain is to get the supply chain to really operate as a system, right? With each part contributing to the health of the whole supply chain as well as all the individual participating organization. Goes back, you guys probably talked about that Dr. Akoff's system thinking approach in one of your prior classes, but that's how we want it to operate, like a system. So the topics tonight that we're going to discuss, is managing that information flow that you guys should have read about in chapter 3, and then creating that information visibility across your supply chain, and then collaboration and trust, customer supplier integration into the new NPD's new product development, and then managing that change. Right. So first slide here in here is uh, is is the first assignment for this week, right? It's a team assignment. We're going to look at the case study for Herman Miller, and we're going to map out the process, right? Uh, uh, it's an APA format, so you're going to map out the process and probably copy it into the APA style, right? So anyway, it's on page 83 of the textbook, right? And so, those of you who aren't familiar with Herman Miller, they're a major American manufacturer of office furniture, equipment, and home furnishing. They're located in Michigan as a headquarters. They've been constantly recognized as one of Fortune magazine's most admired companies, having placed at the top of the list of furniture companies for the past 18 consecutive years. And what makes them so special, and why are we looking at this case study, right? So in 1995, Miller started a new division to run the plant. And he put in what he called SQA, which stands for Simple, Quick, and Affordable. And the key to the effort was linking all the sales and purchasing operations via the internet. And so if you think about it, in 1995, there wasn't any furniture companies doing that, and there wasn't a lot of other folks doing it. So at the time, not a lot of his competitors were doing that. So now today, just about everyone is selling product on the web. Um, but pretty much Herman Miller, CEO at the time, Michael Volkman, said no one is going to lead in the industry without leading in technology. So we've talked a lot about technology and supply chain here, and then we're going to ask you to map the process whereby a customer order is taken and then filled, and then describe the information systems that were implemented, and then how our supply chain performance measures impacted by their information system strategy. And just to give you a hint, nearly 99% on-time deliveries, which is pretty good in any supply chain. So you guys all saw this chart again, right? We reviewed the supply chain technology timeline in lesson 1. We'll talk a little bit. So anyway, as companies strive to increase their productivity and make better decisions, there really arose many in-house developed and supplier offered information systems. And these systems facilitated the internet and integration of all those business functions. So initial systems, like we talked about, were really focused on routine performance of tasks. They were clerical in nature, such as account traction, right? And then the management information systems came into play, and they provided data manipulation to support all kinds of requirements, operational needs, your decision making, and your reporting. And then ERP really led to that business-to-business applications and provided those decision support tools and allowed the web to be a vehicle for that info flow. So that's all related to that case study, and you'll see that. And so, and drivers for supply chain systems and applications. So Hanfield that talks about that on page 87 in the textbook, right? It pretty much says to be successful in a virtual electronic-based economy and e-business, industries are recognizing the need for new information systems. And there's several drivers behind that. New e-business economy, and these include what's on the chart here, those internal and external strategic integrations, that need for the upstream data, right? The globalization of markets, systems to manage those customers and suppliers globally, right? And then certainly the advanced technology development, so all that data mining, the data analytics, and then the re-engineering of processes and process linking that's really taken place in that those ERP, MRP type softwares. And then the antiquated software and legacy systems are constantly being replaced. They get obsolete, they're costly to maintain. The newer systems are much more affordable, and they do a lot more. And then strategic cost management, right? That automation of all that data through the supply chain so you can make those adequate business decisions. So integrating the information systems. So over many years, companies implemented both in-house developed and purchased functionally siloed centered software like we talked about in lesson 1. These were then interfaced to bring like a quasi-integrated approach to information management. And by the end of the 90s, early 2000s in particular, all the software companies were moving towards systems with multiple model approaches, right? Replacing the need for multiple products from one multiple software supplier. So that this needs stimulated the evolution of ERP, like we talked about, enterprise resource planning software, as well as all that integration with the information technology. And so the ERP, as we talked about in lesson 1, is really the great enabler if implemented properly, right? So you got to really do that because it provides the data that you see on this chart, right? It centralizes all your information and integrates your processes. It allows quick data interchange between all your stakeholders within your company, and then it gives you real-time data to capture so you can make those real-time decisions that impacts your supply chain. And then it also gave you that global management of inventory and other assets, just like you guys read about in the book. And so the benefits of an information system, Hanfield goes and talks about this on page 91 of your textbook, right? It certainly increased productivity. It gave you accurate real-time information for decision support and improved your material flow. It gave you what-if analysis that you could do at any other time, simulation of things you wanted to test out. Then function and organizational linkage, consolidate global purchases, you lower operating costs, and improve metrics so that you can make those decisions more informed. So a little bit redundant here. We'll talk a little bit more about ERP, right? So ERP really became that extension of material requirements planning, right? And the ERP, as we discussed, is a business management software. And it's usually a suite of integrated applications that a company can use to collect, store, and manage and interpret data from many business activities, including your production planning, cost, manufacturing, your service delivery, your marketing and sales, your inventory management, your shipping, and your payment. It also provides an integrated view of core business processes, often real time, using common databases maintained by database management system. You know, and then in the 2000s, Lean Six Sigma, the methodology that relies on a collaborative team effort to improve performance by systematically removing those waste and combining those lean manufacturing and lean enterprise Six Sigma to eliminate those waste, the defects, the overproduction, the waiting, the non-utilization, that transportation, that inventory, the motion, the extra processing, the downtime, all helps to make that ERP a very powerful tool within your supply chain. So we'll go through some of those reasons why you would even think about implementing an ERP, and probably most of your all your manufacturing organizations and businesses have integrated. I'm sure a lot of you guys on the phone have an SAP system or some ERP system within your organization. So it integrated that financial information. So if you're a company leader, a CEO, or CFO, and you try to understand the company's overall performance, he or she may find it that there's many different versions of the truth, right? Finance has had its own set of revenue numbers. Sales had another version, and the different business units may each have their own version how much they contributed to revenue. Well, the ERP takes those different versions and creates a single version of the truth that cannot be questioned because everyone's using the same system, using the same metrics, using the same data, right? And then another reason why you would do it, to integrate those customer order information, right? ERP systems can become the place where the customer order lives, uh, real time, from the time a customer service representative receives it until the loading dock ships that merchandise and finance sends an invoice. So that's very powerful. But so by having this information in one software system rather than scattered around many other different systems that can't communicate with one another. So companies can keep track of orders more easily. They can coordinate manufacturing inventory and shipping among many different locations at the same time, right? And then it standardizes and speeds up the manufacturing, right? So in a manufacturing company, especially those with an appetite for mergers and acquisitions, often find that multiple business units across the company make the same widget using different methods and computer systems. Well, using one ERP system comes with a standard method for automating some of the steps of that manufacturing process. It helps to standardize those processes and uses a single integrated computer system that'll save you time, increase your productivity, and reduce your headcount, and identify where those multiple widgets could be brought together for economies of scales. And then reduce inventory. So the ERP helps the manufacturing process flow more smoothly as it improves the visibility of the order fulfillment process inside your organization, your company. And that could lead to your reduced inventories of the materials used to make your product and all your work in progress in your inventory. And it could help users better plan deliveries to customers, right? Reducing the finished good inventory at the warehouse and shipping docks, and it will help to improve the flow of your supply chain. But and that's where ERP helps to do that. And then it actually standardizes some HR information, especially in companies with multiple business units. So HR may not have a unified, simple method of tracking employees' times and communicating with them about benefits and services. An ERP could fix that. So implementing an ERP philosophy and application system requires a lot of standardization of your processes in order to achieve the effective integration of those processes. So if you ever do be on a team that's going to implement an ERP, it's really important to take those processes and make sure you're putting integration into it so you can reap the big benefits of it. Any questions on ERP or why you would implement it? Anybody got an example of where they implemented ERP in their company successfully or or not so successfully? You guys can still hear me, right? Somebody say yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
One of the examples I can share is that sometimes I know there's some of these systems where you can input expiration date on inventory, and so it kind of gives you a trigger or a warning and a flag telling you that you have this inventory that's coming up, so you either need to decide what to do with it or just to make sure that you don't end up losing that money in the end.
Yep, absolutely. Right. It tracks your shelf life, and so you could actually make decisions way before that shelf life expires with the data that you're going to use or the material that you're going to use. So, a good example. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So, ERP is certainly an enabling integrated process, right? So, ERP is a philosophy, right, of managing organizational resources, such as your such as your
So I
people.
have a,
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Sir.
so these processes are they just for the supply chain? Because I'm trying to put it into some type of context in regards to my line of work, and I'm having a bit of a difficulty.
Yeah, so and actually the enterprise resource planning is all the supply chain processes, but it's also all the organizational processes. So you got your finance processes in there, and I mentioned just a second ago, you got your HR processes in there. It's really up to how much. A lot of folks implement a like SAP enterprise resource planning system, and they'll just use it for supply chain. Other larger organizations will use it for all their processes within their organization, from manufacturing process to engineering processes to finance, biz ops, scheduling, planning, some contractual processes, your invoicing and billing. Um, uh, Department, but it really integrates the supply chain, all the supply chain processes. But it's unlimited to how much you want to put in from your organization. Got
Yes,
that?
sir.
All right, great. All right. So, like I said, so it's a philosophy, right? ERP is of managing all of your organizational resources. Really key on your supply chain, but just about everything. And those resources could be people, processes, and technology across your enterprise, right? So ERP requires that those processes really be standardized across your enterprise. So it brings a level or process discipline that's never been seen before, right? And so it also provides a unified organization-wide view of your business processes and all the associated information with those processes. So it becomes a very valuable tool if implemented correctly, right? And it's a data warehouse facilitator, right? With your customer relationship, right? So it facilitates, gets you closer to your customers. And how does that do that? It does that by integrating your sales and your marketing and your service strategies together, right? It gives you that integrated information flow across your organization. And it's an organization of customer data to better understand what your customer wants from you. It gives you that, it forces you to give a high level of customer service. And in return, you're going to get more sales that'll add to more revenue, right? So it's also a decision support system, right? So like you guys read this in your reading on page 109, Handful talks about it provides a tool for making decisions within your support systems. It's computerized support for either complex or non-routines or even partially structured decisions, and allows you to examine that relationship and performance across your supply chain. That it also has all the math in there, so it has those complex algorithms, all the linear program, and parameters that could be tailored and modified for your business needs, and then you can make accurate decisions in there. It could also integrate your demand forecasting right within that tool as well, so you could see your total asset visibility, what's due in, that's shelf life items, the items that are on that require servicing and periodic scheduled maintenance. So it's pretty good. Any questions up to this point before we go to the next section?
No, sir. Good to go.
Okay, so we'll talk a little about creating that information visibility across your supply chain, like you guys read about in chapter 8 and 9. Uh, so uh, uh, in chapter 9, between pages 298 and 300, Hanfield really talks about that information visibility, the process of sharing all that critical data that's required to manage that flow of product services in real time, right? Between your original equipment manufacturer, your organization, and all your suppliers, right to your customer. So it really gives you that visibility, which certainly helps uh, a lot. We're gonna skip the Cisco case study because we're gonna do another one tonight. And it gives you the information visibility, right? So that here on the slide, it shows you two risks, right? Two issues. So you got a risk, transfer and risk to supplies when each firm must rely on another supply chain members. You got that visibility right there. The power, it shifts them from manufacturers to retailers or to your customers. And if you remember our insourcing and outsourcing discussions from last week, it plays a key role in there. And then, as previously discussed, Dell is considered a benchmark, right? They're holding only hours of inventory, so like a just-in-time type operation. Promises customers 5-day lead time, and it provides that supply chain visibility to its suppliers, its forecasters, engineering change, and others, and directly to the customer. So you have visibility in your product and where it's at all time until you get it. So information visibility is always there. And so we talked a lot about collaboration, right? So there's a ton of information that should be shared across the supply chain, right? And this is just a sampling, but certainly production rates and your inventory on hand, your inventory in transit. You might have inventory in repair or servicing, your advanced ship notice, your forecast, all your damaged goods, actual versus delivered amounts, real-time alerts, upcoming engineering changes, your collaborative demand forecast and your prioritizations, what are your priorities? And by having all that information and shared across the supply chain, it allows you to make real-time informed decisions with accurate data. We're going to talk a little about collaboration and trust because we went through this a few times in in the last 3 lessons, and we're going to talk a little about tonight. And let's see, I think the next slide is our standard products case study. So you guys had an assignment to go and read what standard products was, right? And we said that we were going to discuss it a little bit in class, get you guys to talk a little bit, right? Let's see if I could open this up. And so we will go by team. Is this the right one? Page up. I'm sorry. Give me just a second. Open the wrong slide. That's the one I wanted. I'm working off my laptop tonight, which is not always fun. All right, so Team UTC, you had the first question. Does somebody on your team want to try and tackle that? What standard products concern was?
From what I remember reading, it was talking about how the was it Plastic Engineering had several quality issues, and that they had more material than necessary. And so because of this, they actually brought up a Kaizen to do a breakthrough and collect data and study stuff to make sure that they could improve not only the production but do away with the unnecessary or the stock of material that they had.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it right on it, right? They had quality problems and they had way more material than was necessary. So good job. Thank you. And then somebody from Team Prime Aircraft want to tackle number 2, describe the supplier development approach and their concerns with it.
Sir,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. So reading the problem set with the Standard Products company and their supplier, Plastic Engineering, they were able to get to the realize what type of problem that Plastic Engineering was having, and that they wouldn't be able to meet the expectations on the number of latches they need to be produced. So they used the Kaizen breakthrough, which is a focused approach to process improvement and collecting data as stated by the other team. But their approach was when they sent their team leads, 6 personnel within plastic engineering, and they explained the process, what was going to happen, ensuring what I like the most while reading this is the security that they gave the people, no job losses, which was a very critical piece in getting full the cooperation and ensuring that the process works. And their approach kind of brought in the actual team within plastic engineering, taking their own team leaders, teaching them something that they didn't know, and implementing that approach, bringing a breakthrough actually within the plastic engineering company.
Yeah, excellent. And I also thought that, you know, they by ensuring the employees that there wasn't going to be any job loss, and by becoming team members, they actually became one team, right? Standard Products, Product, they all went in there. Actually, Standard Products helped and trained at their own expenses to improve plastics
Yes,
engineering
sir.
processes. And so it really felt like they were investing.
Part of the problem, part of
Right.
the
Yeah,
solution.
it was excellent. Yeah, it was good. Very good. Thank you. All right, and last team, you guys want to tackle the three key successes?
Yeah, this is Sam Taylor from Team Variation. The three keys to success were, firstly, during the implementation of the Kaizen breakthrough, management explained everything to the employees and ensured them that there would be no job loss. Secondly, Standard Products deployed a supplier development approach, teaching the plastic engineering supplier about process improvement and mentoring them throughout the process in its entirety. And then thirdly, the cost reductions were shared in an equitable manner on a product by product basis between the organizations.
Yep, yep, excellent. So really, right? They got their customer satisfaction through that continuous improvement, right? Um, they did some just in time. Some of the stuff we talked about through all the courses you did. They really focused on that supplier partnership, right? That customer supplier relationship, and they talked in an honest and ethical manner. They shared good news as well as bad, and they really collaborated on a lot of things and became one team. So yeah, very good. So why do we do that case study? Because that's really what we're going to talk about in the next few slides of the lesson. So let me get back to that. All right. All right. So we're going to talk collaboration and trust. So developing with trust is key in pretty much any relationship, right? You have to develop trust with your suppliers, right? And there's ways to do that, right? And these are just some of them. It's almost a common sense approach, right? Follow through on your commitments, right? Make certain your organization, your supply chain partners have assigned competent, knowledgeable, and experienced people to manage that relationship. And make sure that when you're selecting that primary interface with your supply chain partner, choose individuals with extensive knowledge of the technology or function that you're doing, and somebody with good people and good people skills, good communicator, and with good character, right? That's how you build any kind of relationship, but certainly important in building that relationship with your suppliers. And then you have to manage that trust, right? You manage it through information sharing, which helps assure the other partner that its interests are being protected, right? You show that genuine responsiveness to your supplier's needs and demand, the same from them, right? And then you be willing to go that extra mile, just like in any kind of relationship that builds trust. And so, almost common sense stuff that you read about in the chapters. All right, so the individual assignment for this week is to read another case study, Whirlpool, and then answer these questions again in the APA format, right? And I want to, should have said this. I think I said this in week 1, but I wanted to remind you guys again. Follow the assignments and the discussion questions that are posted on the portal. They differ slightly, especially in week 5, because we're not going to do any of them, right? And then last week, the discussion question was slightly different than what was in the slide and in the syllabus. So always follow the assignments on the portal, and you'll be successful that way. Especially week 5, you don't have to do anything. All you're going to do, we're going to do this week. You got 1 discussion question, 2 case studies, a team one and an individual one, and then next week, all you're going to do is prepare for your team presentation. All right. So there's certainly always challenges to supply chain, just like there's challenges to any relationship. And so, how are these issues, challenges, and what could we do about them, right? So certainly you want to protect confidentiality. Just like when you learned in your benchmarking course, you're going to sign a non-disclosure agreement or a protection agreement that you're not going to share your supplier's data, right? You're going to protect it. You're going to protect their data, their design. So you're going to sign some kind of a confidentiality agreement and protect their intellectual property and their competition sensitive data, and you're certainly going to protect their pricing data, right? And then research and development. Share what you can on your new product. Sometimes you're not going to share everything because that's intellectual property or competition sensitive data to you, but share what you can, right? With the new product development, because it may impact your suppliers, right? You're going to rely on them to provide some kind of product to help in that new product development. So they need to know what the capacities are, what their resources are required, what manufacturing or tooling efforts they may need. So share what you can when you can do that. And then increase your service expectations, right? How you plan to support pre-transaction, post-transaction elements, identify those methods of guaranteeing customers will return for future business, right? Because if your suppliers feel that you got a good, strong future and a good sales plan, they're willing to invest a little bit too. And then share those service expectations for providing ongoing service to your customers, your repairs, your warranties, your service, your parts, right? That way you got the suppliers know that you always have some kind of return business as well. And then leverage, right? As companies continue to merge and acquire one another, that power base continues to shift in your supply chain from manufacturing to large retailers. So you need to leverage a competitive advantage. Customers need to know that they could always come back for supported products that you sold. So you need to be cautious of that too when you're merging. And then mass customization, right? Customers will continue to demand customized products. So you need to be prepared for that, and you need to be always looking for the future on that. And then certainly share responsibility with your suppliers like they did in your case study that you did this today. Risks, your rewards, your increased investments in IT and any technology that's required to integrate your supply chain. And to justify the risks of those investments, you need to determine who takes on the risk and value the reward. So there's a shared effort there. It's a collaboration. It's a team where you're going to share the risk and the rewards. All right. We're going to talk about some of the best practices on collaboration, right? So collaborate with your planning, forecasting, replenishment, as Hanfield says that. Let them know what you need, right? So if you forecast, normally what you're doing most forecasting tools, you'll put a strategic plan in place that tells you all the material you need for an entire year. That's what strategic means, a long-term type plan. And then you're going to put a tactical plan together that says, daily, weekly, monthly, what's required, right? And you're going to want to share that with your suppliers because they need to know and plan for how much product you need from them to support your forecast and your product development, right? And then certainly collaborate on your contract management visibility. Let them know the amount of business you're getting and the amount of contracts you're achieving, because that helps them to plan their resources so they could continue to support you. Plus, it also assures them that you got future business coming. Any questions on that? Okay. So this is the discussion question for week 4. So basically, um, I'm trying to remember. You're gonna choose one of these best practices and just share what you know about them in a discussion question, and then certainly respond to your cohorts. You can pick anything from this list. If you have a best practice that you're implementing with your massive business project, or you have one that you're familiar with your company, you could choose one of them. You don't necessarily have to choose one of these, but you read about all of this in your reading assignments, and we talked about all this. But certainly, I'm not going to restrict you just to this. If you got one that you believe is the best practice and you want to talk about that, certainly feel free to do that. Any questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay. So moving on. So you guys probably all read this in the Toyota way when you had that, and I'm sure you probably all have this, that you still have that book from a prior class. But on page 215 of the Toyota Way book, this supply chain needs hierarchy model is there, right? And it's modeled after Maslow's need of hierarchy. But here it suggests that until you build those relationships with your suppliers and get them to that stabilized and stabilize them to the point where business relationships are fair and processes are stable and expectations are clear. It's really impossible to get those higher levels of enabling systems and to a truly learning together as an enterprise system. So respect your extended network of suppliers and partners and challenge them and help them to improve and fulfill these needs on there. And if you could do it all, if you're fair and honorable, you got trust and you got a good relationship, you got reliable process, clear expectation, your enabling system, you're going to get to that learning enterprise, and you're going to be very well off. And I didn't do it justice there, but if you wanted to go back and read that in Toyota Way, it's all on page 215 of that book. All right, we're going to talk about new product development and integration with your supply chain, right? It's another thing in class, but we're not going to do that. But this is a chart of new product development right out of Hanfield's book, right? It's a form of supplier integration, and it could be framed within the context of a generic new product development process, as shown on this slide. And there's certainly risk and opportunities associated with this, but you need to know what suppliers you're going to use in your new product development, right? And to what extent, and you need to collaborate them so they know that you're going to be buying product from them, and at what quantity and when you need it, right? And then that's so that they can meet your requirements and meet your schedule. And if they require any capacity ramp up, which means, hey, I got to make more of a certain product, I might need more resources, people, tools, raw material, whatnot. And then they certainly want to evaluate if there's any technical expertise needed in developing that product. And then any other risk issues or opportunities that you want to collaborate on so that you could build a successful product and have those suppliers help you be there. So you want to manage that change as well within your supply chain. You can see I'm skipping a lot of in class thing, but GM, and this was related to the GM case study, but GM certainly was in a little financial crisis, as we all know, right? And they promoted financial measures over customer satisfaction, which led to that. A few of the GM managers will probably never forget that, as this chart shows. But they were buying a lot of purchased goods and logistics and services, right? And they identified those critical change factors, which is an element of change management that was truly required to be an enabled thing, so they could focus on. And this is really what they did in this GM case study, right? They created change leaders. And I think I said this last week. Sense of urgency brings about the best change, right? So you want to create that sense of urgency, right? And you want the full support of your entire leadership team, so they could be champions and manage that change for you, right? And then seek those early wins, right? And then change the practice of how you award business solely on the basis of relationship to on a competitive basis based on proven performance, and it helps to manage that change. And then performance metrics, you got to have metrics to manage that, right? Otherwise, what doesn't get measured doesn't get improved. And then change your supplier selections based on that quality they're giving you, the service, the price, the technology, and you keep going on. So I'm gonna. There's a couple of slides on there, but I will continue talking about them. So you don't have to reorganize like GM did, but certainly you got to promote that global cross-functional teaming, right? And reduce your duplications of resources. That's going to save you resources and money, right? Put a global structure and focus on that clear communication, right? And the visibility to all those custom requirements, new technology, sources of supply, right? And provide that smooth transition between product development right into your production, right into your order fulfillment and the sales to your customer. And then do that internal integration as well. Build a strong business case so that you could adopt that new technology. Value stream, just like you guys learned in your class, so that you could identify where it needs to be improved. And then redesign your supply chain to enable that visibility of all your customer requirements throughout the entire supply chain, and adapt that collaborative approach to everything, so that you're not only collaborating internally, but you're also doing it externally. Wow, I'm almost through this. I should probably did a couple of case studies. So future challenges, right? Well, I went too far. So future challenges. So thoroughly understand the existing supply chain, right? That's always a tough thing to do. But if you could identify that thing, great, right? And then create that integrated value stream within your infrastructure. Change the nature of alignment in your collaboration and build that trust, right? To achieve that true collaboration, you have to have trust and relationships within internally and external suppliers. And then make joint decisions based on all your metrics and data that you got within your data mining, right? So supply chain management is all about convincing people to adapt to a common process for decision making, right? It's for the benefit of all supply chain members in their effort to meet the needs of your final customer. Any questions up to this point? Because this is a short slide week, because we had all these. Normally we do a little bit more class discussions. Anything?
Not really, sir.
All right.
Some your expectations of for the presentation, sir? Is there like a format or that you need us to follow, or what we've been doing thus far?
Yeah, so it's just so the way you did it so far. You already created your supply chain map, put it on a PowerPoint slide. You already created a geographic map and your thread diagram. Combine them together. Show show where you're focused on your improvements, show where your risk issues are around that, and then everybody from your team should have a section to talk about, or as much as possible. I know you guys got some very large teams, so you might break it up to at least 2 or 3 different people. And then I would suspect it's probably anywhere from 15, 20 minutes each, and then leave a little bit of time for questions from your classmates and from me. And that's really it. Is that easy?
We shall see, sir.
Okay. Let me know if it's not clear what you're trying to improve on your master business project. Put a bullet or an extra slide in there from your master business project presentation, so I could see what you're trying to improve on your, whether you're trying to chase something, either improve your process or reduce cycle time or improve quality or something. Just let me know so I can make sense of it as I'm going through. All right.
Good copy. Thank
Okay, so I'm done with the slides tonight. So we'll just do a quick summary of lesson 4. Most of it was integration, collaboration, building trust, and building relationships, right? So information flows, right? Both internal and across your supply chain. Has to be timely, has to be accurate, so you can make really informed decisions. Build those alliances, right? With your outsourcing, insourcing, and your collaborative relation. It allows a company to focus on its core competencies and create that winning supply chain. Make sure you have clear processes, right, to reduce that risk. And then make sure your supply chain integration is operating as a system, right? Again, and then take a look at the new product development, because that's always the key point in any supply chain, where you may be introducing new suppliers or using older suppliers that might be making a new product for you. And then supply chain thinking and implementation, right? It brings about radical changes to an organization, and that change management has to be enforced, and those changes need to be strictly managed. So that's it for lesson 4, which is good. I'm glad it's a short week because I got a little sore throat, so I'll be coughing here in a second. Any questions at all up to this point? Any questions about your upcoming class, or anything related to NGS? It's open time right now. You guys are quiet. Okay, I'm gonna stay on the line. We're just getting out of here early, so it's a good night. Gives you time to go work on your assignments, work on your presentation. Make sure you get your discussion questions done, and then I'm gonna stay on the line here for a while. So if you got any questions I'm here. If not, have a good night.
Got a quick question, sir.
Yes.
So for the team assignment, it says describe the information systems that were implemented. Are these when doing this, is this kind of like the ideas that we're looking to input into our MVP?
No, this is all related to the case study. So what happened is...
Oh, that's the case study.
Yeah, so
okay.
The Herman Miller case study. So they actually implemented an information system. There's a little diagram that shows it within the case study, and you could describe that.
Okay, my mistake. I saw Miller. I was like, oh, and then I just didn't realize it said Herman. Sorry about that. Okay,
Yeah,
no, that makes sense. Sorry. That's all. Thank you.